Welcome back, everyone. For today's video, we are back with the Speed Chess Championship semifinals and finals being held here in London in the United Kingdom. Now, unlike the previous matches in the Speed Chess Championship, this grand finale is going to be held in person in front of a live audience. So, very, very exciting event. In the semifinals, I'm up against Alireza Firouzja in a very, very big matchup to face off against Magnus Carlsen in the grand final. Now, this match went extremely long, so I'm just going to go through a certain moments for anybody who's wondering. We're not going to go through every single game, but let's take it from the top. Now, this match got off to a very, very strange start for a couple of reasons. First of all, before the match started, when we were testing the equipment, there was an issue with the computer that I was using. It was very, very slow. The memory was kind of cached or something, and basically it just wasn't working. So what happened is that chess.com switched out the computer. They brought in a backup before the match began. Now, another point that I want to make as well is that one of the funny things is that for these in-person matches, usually the players have playlists of music they want to listen to. For me, unfortunately, my playlist was not saved on the computer, so I actually started off the event playing a YouTube video from my channel of Electro Swing Jazz. Now, I probably will link it below so you guys can find that exact video if you want to, but it was very, very weird before the match began. So the match gets underway. I lose in the very first game. Alireza plays a great game. The second game, out of nowhere, suddenly ends very abruptly. Now, in the second game, I was a little bit worse in a Catalan with the white pieces when suddenly my connection was lost to chess.com. Now, this happened around the 20th move. I lost about 20 seconds, but it came back, and I was, of course, not happy about it. I said something to the arbiter, but I figured the show would go on. However, lightning would strike twice when about 30 seconds later, I would lose my connection completely and I would get disconnected from chess.com altogether. Now, fortunately for me, it was a situation where the position in the second game was a complete draw. So, of course, Alireza and I agreed to a draw and there was no harm, no foul. But this also meant there was a big delay before we started playing the next game. Now, I will say, without giving spoilers, I do think that having this break after the second game was very, very important for me because it gave me a chance to settle in and get back into the match. So, I'm trailing by 1.5 half. Now, in the third game, I would actually get a big swindle to tie the score up at 1.5, 1.5, and we're now going to move to the final game of the 5+1 with the score tied at 3.5 all. So, this is the 8th game of the match. We're all square in the 5+1, and in this game, I have the black pieces. Now, Alireza opens with d4, I play d5, c4, and this time I just decide to play the slot. We get knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, and here I play the move a6. Now, this is what is known as the Chebanenko slaw. Black plays a6. It stops ideas like white putting a knight or a bishop on b5 in the long term. Black can also potentially play b5 with these pawns supporting the thrust. So Alireza goes c5. I play knight d7, bishop f4, knight h5, bishop d2, and now I play the move queen c7. Now this move is simply a mistake, and I'm going to be honest. Going into this match, I was not intending to play the Slav defense, but I felt like the queen's gambit decline that I've been playing in the first couple of games simply was not working. Now, the correct move here is to play knight to f6 back. If white goes bishop f4, knight to h5 is a draw, but instead, I decide to play queen c7. Now, what's really funny about this, and to give you guys some history, is way back in 2002, when I was all of 15 years old, I actually bought a CD at the time on the Chebanenko Slav. It was by Dorian Rogozenko, a Romanian grandmaster, and this variation with knight h to f6 was in that database. On that CD, I should add. But I decided to go queen c7. Alireza plays e4, I trade, and now I play the move knight to f6. We got the trade of knights. Alireza plays bishop c4, I go bishop f5, castles, and here I play the move e6. Now Alireza plays rook e1, and here I play this move rook to d8 after a 6-second think, and this is a really, really bad move. Now, we aren't looking at a lot of the games in the 5+1 portion, but I will say that I felt really, really shaky. I felt like a lot of my decisions in these 5-1 games were not very good, and I actually thought I was quite lucky to not be down by a big margin at this point in the match. So I played rook d8 after a 6-second think, and now after queen to a4, my position is simply horrendous because white is threatening to play the move bishop to a5 here, hitting the queen and the rook, and already here with the lack of development on the king's side, white is close to winning. So I end up playing the move queen to c8 here. We get bishop a5, rook d7, Alireza plays bishop b3, and now I play the move bishop b7. Alireza goes knight e5, and here I castle, and I simply give up the rook on d7. Now, at this point, I'm in a very, very bad mood. I'm down in exchange, a rook for a knight at this point. White should be winning, but what I told myself in this game is that I'm going to get this knight on d5. White has no easy pawn pushes, and you never know what can happen if you keep the game going. So we get rook d1. I play knight d5, bishop c4, and here I play the move bishop to f6. Alireza goes queen b3, I play h5, he takes, and now I take with the pawn. Now, I don't know if bishop takes d5 is necessarily a mistake per se, but I felt that based on what happened in the game, this was an unnecessary exchange of this great bishop on c4 for the knight. So we get the trade, h3, bishop e4, Alireza plays a3, and now I play the move rook to e8, hoping to play e5 here to create a classic double wooden shield in the middle of the board. Alireza goes queen g3. I play e5, we get bishop c3, and now I play the move h4. Now, one thing you'll notice here, and one thing that I actually do a lot when I play these 5+1 games, regardless of the opponent, is I tend to actually be very slow because when I'm playing 5+1, I usually am trying to play precise chess because with the 5 minutes, there's more time to think as opposed to trying to play on the clock in the same kind of way I do in either bullet or blitz. So we get queen e3. I play queen to f5, Alireza takes, I go bishop g5, and now we get the move queen e2. Here I play the move queen g6, and at this point, I'm just hoping to create some counterplay. I've got this great wooden shield in the middle of the board, maybe some threats towards the pawn on g2, and I'm hoping that it's going to work out. Alireza plays f3, I go bishop f5, he takes, and now I play the move bishop f4. Now, once I go bishop to f4, I'm threatening to play queen g3, creating the double battery with all these dark squares being weak around the white king. And here Alireza plays move bishop d2. I go bishop g3, rook c1, f6 here, and Alireza plays move f4. Now, I don't know if f4 is necessarily, it's obviously a good move objectively, but once Alireza plays f4 here, I get this bishop to e4, and now with both these bishops kind of anchored on these diagonals at this point, it's actually feeling a little bit hard for white to play. Now, again, white is completely winning, but there are practical tricks in the position now, whereas I think that had Alireza played something like bishop c3, these ideas would not exist to the same degree, because the light square bishop simply doesn't have great squares in the position. Instead, we get the move f4. Now, after we get f4 being played, I play the move bishop to e4 here, and after I play the move bishop to e4, Alireza plays rook d6. Here I go bishop c6, trying to create threats on the diagonal of the bishop, and Alireza plays the move rook f1. I go queen to f5 here. Apparently, in this position, I have bishop b5, which I simply did not see, I must admit, which would have hit the queen and the rook, and black is actually only marginally worse. Instead, I go queen f5. Here, Alireza plays bishop c3, I trade, and now I play the move rook to e7. Alireza goes queen g4, and here I trade and play king h7. Now, at this point, I am completely cooked. We're in an endgame, we're in a massive scramble here, with white having a rook and multiple pawns in return for the bishop. This should be a pretty simple win. So Alireza goes g5. I play bishop e4, b4, bishop f5, rook f3, bishop e4, and here I'm simply dilly-dallying and trying to waste a bunch of time by moving my bishop. So I go bishop f5, I go rook c7, and here Alireza plays move g6. Now this move, as you can probably tell from the evaluation bar, the computer really likes this move objectively, but I think it's a very, very bad practical decision because at this point in time, my king is simply hemmed in here. The king is not going anywhere, but once I get the king to h6, now the pawn is a weakness, the king can run up the board, and there are maybe some faint chances of survival. So we get king b4. Here I play bishop to f2, and now things are starting to get a little bit tricky with the bishop hitting the rook and the pawn, the bishop going to e1 maybe. Of course, it's still completely winning, but with mere seconds on the clock, there are some chances for a miracle. So we get bishop d4 here. This, of course, is not a great move from Alireza, but I think it makes a lot of sense because even though he's giving back the rook, he maintains the extra pawns on the queen side, and this is a way of making it so that the moves are a little bit easier to play in this situation. So I go rook e7, we get bishop d4, now I go rook to e2, Alireza plays c6, I take, and here Alireza takes the pawn on c6. Now, had Alireza played the move b6, pushing the p on the b file here, there is no doubt in my mind that I would have lost this game, but instead he takes the pawn, and now the bishop is actually covering this queening square for the white pawn, and everything is up for grabs. So I take, we get rook d5, I play bishop e6, c7, and here I play the move rook c2. We get bishop c3, and now I play h3, and there is complete chaos on the board because white has a passed pawn, but now I have a passed h-pawn, and any result is possible. So we get f5 here. I play the move bishop to c8. h2 would have been possible, but again, we're playing on mere seconds, and at this point, it's all about the instinct of what to play. You don't have time to calculate, and so I play the move bishop c8. Alireza goes rook d8. This is a mistake because now I can take the pawn with the bishop. We get rook f8, a bunch of rook and bishop moves here. And in this position, I finally decide to play the move h2. Now, again, we're tied in the match here. He's got 1 second, I have 4 seconds. I simply thought h2 was a good move. So Alireza takes. I queen, Alireza queens, and here I simply don't have it. I play this move queen to e4. Now this move is not a losing blunder per se, but in this position, if I play the move queen to b1, checking the king, the game is effectively over. If white goes to a4, a3, or a5, there's rook to a2, creating the classic ladder checkmate. And if white goes to c4, I can sack the rook, taking the bishop, playing queen to c1 here, and when the white king moves, I take the queen and I win the game. But instead, I play the move queen to e4. Alireza goes king b3, I play rook takes c3, and shockingly in this position, Alireza flags here. Now, this position is actually a draw here. If white were to take with the queen, I can take the rook, but the funny variation is if white takes with the king, which is what you would expect, the queen guards the rook here, I can actually sack my queen by playing queen takes rook, and after queen takes queen, the game ends in a draw because my king has no squares, and this would be stalemate. But Alireza flags here, and this is a very, very huge moment in the match because this means that after playing very poorly, losing in many games with 5+1, somehow by a miracle, I'm actually ahead 4.5 to 3.5 at the end of the first portion of the match. So things are looking good in spite of how poorly I'm playing, and now we're going to talk about the 3+1 portion. Now, before we get into this 3+1 game, at the start of the 3+1, it actually started going in my favor again. I won the first game. I was up by 2 points. But one thing that happened in this match is that at certain moments, whether I want to say the concentration or generally a lack of energy, is that there were some lapses by me. So after taking a 2-point lead in the 3+1 portion, Alireza stormed back, winning 4 games in a row to take a 2-point lead. In the second to last game of the 3+1 portion, I won to cut the lead to 1 point for Alireza. And now we're going to look at the final game of the 3+1. I'm down by 1 point. After this, we go to bullet. So it's a very, very critical game. If Alireza is up by 2, he's a clear favorite. If I win, it's even. So let's see what happens. So in this game, I have the white pieces. I play e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, and now Alireza plays the classic Berlin defense with knight f6. I go d3, we get bishop c5, and here I play the move bishop to e3. Now this variation is completely fine. It's nothing special, but I'm simply aiming to get a game of chess with this move as opposed to playing some heavy theoretical battle prior to the candidates. So I play bishop to e3. Alireza trades the bishops, he plays knight to e7, and now I move my bishop back to a4, intending to go bishop b3, hitting the diagonal. Alireza plays c6, and now I play the move bishop to b3. After I play the move bishop to b3 in this position, Alireza plays the move knight to g6 here, and now I decide to castle my king out of the center. Alireza castles, knight d2, d5, and here I play the move queen to e1. Now, as you can tell, this is nothing special. Computer actually favors black, but it's a very, very solid position to play for white. So we get h6. I trade, I go e4, and now Alireza plays bishop e6. Now, I will admit, at this point, I was moving very, very quickly. As you can tell from the time usage, I'm simply trying to get to a position in the middle game where I can think for a bit. But my instincts are wrong because, as you can tell, I thought that here there's a lot of pressure towards the central pawns, but in reality, I'm actually a little bit worse. So I play king to h1 here. If I were to take the pawn and then take this pawn on e5 here, black can play queen to b6 check, and after king to h1, there's rook a e8, and the knight and the queen are simply under attack here, and black covers the square. If I push, black takes the pawn, and I'm going to lose the knight or the queen behind it. So I go king to h1. Alireza plays rook to e8, and now I play the move queen g3, trying to hit the pawn on e5. We get rook to c8, I play c3, Alireza trades, and now he plays the move queen d3. Now this game, of course, is not going in my favor. I have this weak pawn on e4, the knight is weak, the queen's hitting everything here. Black also is controlling this open file, and at this point, I was just telling myself, try to survive and get it into a time scramble. So I play queen e1. Alireza plays knight g4, I play queen g3, he goes knight to e3, and this move is fine, but I actually think that here, Alireza would have been better served repeating the position and then looking for something better like rook c d8, for example, and black has everything to play for here. There's tons of pressure on the knight, tons of pressure on the pawn, and white just has a miserable position. Instead, we get knight e3. Now I play rook to f2, Alireza plays knight c4, and here I trade and play the move knight d2. Now, at this point, I knew I was a little bit worse in the position, but black has to make some trades here. The bishop's under attack, the queen's under attack, so we get a bunch of trades. But now after a6 and b4 here, even though I have these double pawns, my knight has a really juicy square on c5 or a5, supported by the pawn on b4. And even though I'm worse, there are going to be very good practical chances to try and win the game. So we get knight f8, knight b3, knight e6, stopping the knight jump. I play rook d1, rook c7, and now I play the move rook d2. Alireza goes f6, I play rook d7, and here we get the move rook e7, I trade, and play the move knight c5. Now at this point, I was breathing a bit of a sigh of relief, because at this point, the knights are almost certainly going to be traded, which means that I should never be able to lose in a rook and pawn endgame. Additionally, this means that in the worst case scenario, going to the bullet, I should be down by 1 point. If I'm down by 2, I feel it's a big uphill battle to try and climb back into the match, so I was feeling pretty good about the situation. We get king f7, king g1, a couple of moves happen. I play rook b6, b4, Alireza brings the king over, rook e6, king d7, and now we reach this moment where Alireza simply starts waiting by offering the rook trade on every turn. Now, at this point, Alireza is down 25 seconds, and I decide in this moment that I'm going to gamble here and trade the rooks. Now, whether this is correct or not, I don't know, but I basically had to trust my instinct that this position is probably good. So we get takes. I go king d3, king d7, and here I play the move king to c4. Alireza plays king c6, and now I go king b3. Now, again, I don't have time to calculate this, so this is pure instinct, thinking about this position, that even though I have the double pawns, it prevents black from creating a passed pawn here, and I'm hoping to bring the king up and start pushing these pawns on the queen's side. Now, amazingly, this is actually winning. At the time, I had no idea what was going on, but we get g6, and now I play king a4. Alireza plays h5, I trade, and here I play the move g3. Now again, looking at this with the computer, it's very easy to see that this is winning for white, but without a lot of time, playing this move king to a5 is extremely committal. If I spend 15 seconds and play it, then I will win if I calculate correctly. But on the other hand, if I miscalculate this position after f5 and e4 here, with the black pawn going up the board, I am going to lose this position. However, computer says this is winning, because here you can play king b6, e3, takes, and now white is able to push the c pawn through and win the game. But instead I play g3. Alireza goes king c7, and now I play the move king to b3. Now again, king to a5 would be winning, but at this point I played king b3, and I told myself, just be solid, don't risk it, because a loss will mean that you're behind by 2, and it's very, very unlikely to come back. So we get king d7, I play king c2, and now Alireza, by going king e6, forces me to find the winning variation with this move c4. Now, had Alireza played the move king c6, I think there's a very, very good chance that this game would have ended in a draw, because playing c4 and allowing this a5, which apparently is winning after king c3, is very, very difficult to play with only seconds on the clock. I suspect I would have played king b3, and the game would have ended by repetition. But when Alireza goes king to e6, he now wants to play f5 and create his own passed pawn in the center of the board, and now I don't have a choice. I have to play c4 and b5, I have to try and push his p up the board, and this means that now it becomes very straightforward. Now, Alireza plays king d7 here. Apparently f5 is a draw. I thought that after takes and b5 this was winning, but apparently I'm just a terrible chess player, because after king to e6, black's king actually gets back in plenty of time, and there's nothing I can do. I think what Alireza probably saw here is he probably saw b5, and after takes he probably saw this with c, but actually this is losing, so I don't know what we saw. I don't know what he saw, I don't know what I saw, but either way, we're both completely insane. And at this point, after playing for such a long time with all the stops and starts, it makes sense that some blunders are going to occur. So he goes king d7, now I play b5, we get a5 here, and at this point, black now is going to create 2 passed pawns, the white p-pose, but the great thing for me is now we're in an all-in situation where either I'm going to win this game or I'm going to lose, but there's nothing to think about. I'm going to have to stop this a-pawn, black's going to try to push this pawn, and it's a question of whose pawns get up the board first. So I go king b3, king c7, king a4, Alireza plays f5 here. I'm now threatening to take the pawn, so it's all in time. I take, we get e4, here I push the pawn, and now I play this move b6. Now the computer here I think actually wants me to queen, and after queen, I guess it transposes the game where I play b6, but instead I throw in the check first. We get king d7, if black were to move up, now after queen, queen, there's queen d6 here, simply checkmating the black king on c6. So we get king d7. I queen, he queens, I check. And now we end up in a situation where I start checking, because if I ever don't check, actually, apparently I could have taken this pawn on h5. I don't know how I missed this, but I checked here. I guess I could have taken with check. It's worth pointing out that if I were to play like a move like queen d6, black has queen b4, simply checkmating the white king. So somehow I missed the pawn, I play the check, we get king e7, and now I check, and here I start checking all over the board. Now at this point, I'd make the check, we get king f5, and here I play the move c6, pushing the p with the queen covering the checkmate square on b4. So after I play this move c6, now in this position, Alireza decides to play the move queen to a1. I go king to b5. And at this point, it's anybody's guess whether I'm winning or whether this is going to be a draw. The good news for me here is that I'm simply able to move very quickly. I either create a queen or black has a way to check my king and make the draw, but there's no in between. So we get check, takes, check. Now I play queen b4, takes, and here I play the move king c5. And now with the king on c5 guarding the queen, the pawn going through, this should be technically winning. But again, we're in a situation where both of us have very limited time, so anything can happen. We get check, we get queen f6, sorry, not check. If black were to play queen e5 check, I just take the pawn, of course. So we get queen f6. Here I play queen to e1, simply cutting off any checks on the e files here towards the white king. We get check, takes, check, king b5, and now I play the move king a5. Here, my king is safe. Black cannot check the king on either of these squares. Now, with the 2 extra pawns on the queen side, this should be an easy victory. So we get queen c6. I check, check. Alireza plays king to h3. I think king takes g3 probably would have been preferable, but he goes to h3. Now I play queen to d5 here. Pawn supports the queen. Queen supports the pawn thrust, and here we get the move queen to g6. Now I push my pawn, queen b1, I take with check, and here I check and play the move g4. We get king g1, I check, queen b5, king b6, check, block check, king c7, check, and now I play king c6. Alireza plays queen b8, and here I play the move queen to d6. We get check, queen d7. At this point, I believe that Alireza flagged, but the result is not in doubt here. If black plays queen e4 check, I block, forcing the trade of the queens. I'm also going to queen the pawn. If black goes queen g6 check, I slide the king up, and now there are no checks either way. I'm going to queen the pawn on the next turn. So this also is a straightforward win. So, with this epic victory in the final 3+1 game, this means that the match is all square going into bullet. Now, it's very hard to judge the match in general. I feel this was very topsy-turvy at moments in this match. Again, I'm unhappy with portions of the 3+1, but at the end of the day, it's very, very close. It's all square, and I can't be unhappy because I felt that out of the opening, I was in trouble in a lot of games. So the match is tied, headed to the bullet, and now we're going to see who is better in this critical section, or segment, I should say. Now, in the bullet, I got off to a red-hot start. I won the first game, and the stage is set where I'm up by 2 points with 4.5 minutes left on the timer. At this point, if I can draw one of the final 2 games, let alone win, I will win the match and play in the finals against Magnus. Now, the game that we're going to pick it up is the final game of the 1+1. In the second to last game, I actually had a very, very pleasant position on the white side of a King's Indian. It's a game that I regret slightly because I probably should not have lost it under any circumstance, but considering the nerves, considering the pressure, considering the momentum swings and everything else, I end up losing from a better position. So now we're in the final game of the 1+1, and all the marbles are on the table. I'm leading by a score, I believe, of 13-12, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it's 12-11. I'm up by 1 point. Final game of bullet. I have the black pieces. If I lose, we go to a tiebreaker. If I win or draw, I'm through to the grand finals. So Alireza plays e4 after playing d4 every game in this entire match, and we get the classic Gucci piano. Play bishop c5, d6, bishop g5, and now I play the move a6. We get a4, bishop a7, and Alireza plays knight d2. I go queen to e7, he castles, and now I play the move g5. Now, in general, this system tends to be much easier for black to play because white is castled and black starts pushing the pawns. But in this specific situation, because Alireza must win this game, this is a great decision because it is going to become a very sharp position, and knowing what you need is very, very critical to success in chess. So we get bishop to g3. Here I play knight to h7, b4, and now I play h5. Now the reason I played knight h7 first, if I push the pawn to h5 here, after h4, g4, and knight to g5, the pawn on f7 is a big weakness, and white is doing well. So I play knight h7, now I go h5, knight supporting the pawn, Alireza plays h4, and now I play the move g4, because if white goes knight g5, I simply trade and start pushing my p up the board, and I win the game. So Alireza plays knight e1. I go knight f8, knight g6, knight e3, and now I take the pawn on h4. Now, when I took this pawn, I realized this was a big mistake immediately, but I get a little bit lucky here because Alireza saw my reaction and he plays move knight d5, queen d8, and here he plays the wrong sequence. In this position, if white plays knight takes pawn and bishop takes h4, black's pawns are kind of stuck. They can't go up the board, and here white is actually substantially better. But luckily for me, Alireza gives me a gift. He takes the knight, takes a pawn, and at first glance, it looks like white is winning a rook in the game. But not so fast. I have g3 here, and now with this awesome bishop, the pawn, and the queen threatening checkmate, suddenly I am completely winning. So Alireza plays knight f3. I take the rook, and here at this moment, it's a very difficult position. You have to take stock of what's going on. Material is actually even. Both sides have 6 pawns here and 3 minor pieces, a queen and a rook. But this is probably the moment where I needed to start thinking. I play h4. Alireza plays queen f1, and now I play this move h3 literally instantly. Now remember, this is 1 plus 1. This is not straight up bullet with 1 plus 0. You get an increment, and this is the moment where if I had used my time and played the move queen to g3 here, followed by h3, I simply should be winning the game on the spot. Now, it's always easy to say after the fact you should have thought here, and this is why a lot of times when I've done videos in the past, one thing that I talk about and stress a lot is that Magnus has this intuitive sense in critical moments to be able to slow down and sense when there's something important. Now, this really is important to note because in this position, if I had sensed it and used my time here, I almost certainly would have played queen g3 and won the match. But instead, I'm playing very quickly. I play on instinct and feel, and I play h3 immediately. And this move is actually a big mistake because now after the trade and the move knight to g5, suddenly white is threatening to fork the king and the rook. And if I move the king up to e7, now suddenly white has rook to f1. White's hitting the pawn and the bishop. There's even knight c7. And out of nowhere, this game has turned around completely, and white is doing well. So I take. Now I play rook g8, Alireza takes, I take, and here he plays move knight b6, trying to bring his knight back into the game. I go bishop to e6, knight d5, and here I play the move king to f8. Now, this is an important moment because I think here that king to d8 would have been a much better general option, bringing the king towards the queenside pawns, because as we're about to see in the game, when I go to f8, now white plays b5, and when I trade, suddenly white can play rook to a1, infiltrating on this open a file. Now again, easy after the fact to say that I should have played king to d8 instead of king to f8, but at this point, I'm simply moving very quickly. Now, the second thing that's really important to note also, and this is something that especially as I get a little bit older, I struggle with a lot, is keeping control of what's going on. And the reason I say this is that when we got to this position after if I go back for 1 second, this moment, when we got to this position, I had a feeling I should be winning, or I should not be losing, that everything is in my control. So when you go from that feeling where you have everything in control to suddenly getting to this position where the game goes on, like we have here, it's very, very difficult, and I'm also down 10 seconds on the clock. So I play king to f8 here. Maybe bishop takes d5 is slightly better with a5 here, but with this great wooden shield in the middle of the board, it looks a little bit impractical to play like this. So I play king f8. Alireza goes b5, I trade, and now I play this move knight to e7. Now, this move is probably okay, but I do think I should have played knight to a5, attacking this bishop. I was actually worried after rook to a1 takes here that with the rook coming down the a file, I'm going to end up in a lot of trouble. Computer, of course, laughs and says after rook g4, king to f3, I can simply play this move f5 here, and because I'm putting pressure on the pawns laterally from side to side, there is no chance of losing the game. Now, again, easy to see after the fact with the computer, but not so easy when you have to play quickly under pressure. So instead I go knight e7. Alireza plays rook to a1. At this point, down 10 seconds, Alireza having the easy rook moves on the a file here. This is going to be very, very hard to defend. So I take with a knight. Alireza takes with a pawn. Apparently rook to a8 check first is slightly better, but he takes with a pawn. I play bishop to h3, and now we get to move rook a7. Now, what's funny about this position is that rook to a8 is actually a much stronger move because if I go king g7 here, white can play rook to d8 going after the central pawn, which is very illogical in a sense. And after I play rook g6 here, I think white, I was going to say I thought white could play b6. Maybe that's wrong. But apparently after king to e1, white is still better. Don't ask me why. And if I play king to e7 here, now white can apparently play rook to h8, hitting the bishop, and then rook to b8. This is something that, as I look at it now for the first time after the match, this looks really insane. I mean, if someone can find this with seconds on the clock, good for them. I think this is a computer variation that isn't realistic. So Alireza plays rook a7, the obvious human move, going after the pawn, intending to push the b pawn up the board. I check, he goes king f3, I play f5, takes, rook b2, and now Alireza plays move b6 here. Now, in this position, I play this move f4, and this position is actually a draw with perfect play, but the move to draw the game is a move that if you have time, you probably can find. Playing on instinct, I think it's very difficult to find, which is this move bishop to f1, basically intending to play e4 and taking advantage of this bishop and pawn on this diagonal, while keeping the road open to push both of these pawns in the center of the board. To me, playing on 6 seconds, no time to really think, my instincts fail me. I play the move f4, and my thought here is the only way to survive against this passed pawn is to play a check and try to force this f-pawn through the board. If I play bishop to f1, this game probably would have been a draw, but it's very easy to say after the fact again, with only 6 seconds on the clock, I think this is an extremely difficult move to play. And honestly, after bishop f1, if I think for a second after check and b7 here, apparently I can check. And then I have f4, and I have bishop to h5, which is apparently a draw. Again, this looks very, very computerish, and very hard to play. Maybe I have f3 and f2, which should be a draw. But all these lines are very difficult. If you spot it, you can play it. If you don't spot it, you can't play it. And so I end up playing this move f4 instead. So I play f4, now Alireza plays d4, and this is a move which really threw me for a loop because it's not a move that I was expecting here. I was really expecting Alireza to check and play b7, and with only 4 seconds, I'm simply trying to anticipate his move here, and he plays d4, which completely threw me for a loop, but it is a very strong move because now the bishop covers the queening square of the pawn, and white threatens to try and take and now have 2 passed pawns going up the board. This is also the winning move according to the computer, so you have to tip your cap and give Alireza credit for finding this move. So here I play the move bishop g2, he goes king g4, and now I play f3, simply tunneling on this one plan, but as soon as Alireza takes the pawn on e5, as I realize much to my horror, the bishop is covering the pawn. I simply didn't realize the bishop was covering the square, so I'm just playing on fumes. I play f2, he goes e6, and now with this move rook to f7 here, pawn supporting the rook, at this point, white is completely winning. So I queen, he takes, he plays rook to f7, and now unfortunately here I'm simply down 2 pawns, and after king to f5, rook b2, and c4, I think I ran out of time, but the result is not in question here. With the 2 passed pawns in the center of the board, white will win this eventually by bringing the rook to the open file, either the h file or the a file. With the active king and the 3 connected pawns, this game is over. So this was absolutely a complete heartbreaker to lose this game because now I have to go into overtime. So we're all tied after the bullet portion as well. I think that I definitely missed a big opportunity in these final 2 bullet games. But again, this game, there was one moment where I had queen g3, but otherwise nothing was really conclusive or clean. So it's hard to be too negative about being in this situation. So we're all tied, headed into sudden death. The match score, I believe, is 13-13, if I'm not mistaken. We're tied, and now it becomes a best of 4 with 1+1. So in this first game of the 1+1, I have the white pieces, and we get another King's Indian defense here, where I decide to play the classic exchange variation. Now, my logic behind playing this variation is that it's very, very equal. It should be simple to play, and there should be very low risk. So we get knight e8. Knight e8 is a move here. Knight takes d5 is the main line. But we get knight e8, I check, I take, and now I play the move bishop e3. We get knight c6, here I play the move c5, trying to stop the knight and open up the scope for the light square bishop. Alireza plays rook d8, and here I play the move a3, intending to play b4, supporting the pawn on c5. We get knight to d4, I take, play bishop d3, we get c6, b4, knight c7, and now I play the move king to d2. Alireza goes a5, I move the king over, and here he plays the move rook to a7. Now this opening has not been a success for me. I'm going to end up down on time here with black creating a double stack and pressure on the a file, so I have to be very precise to not end up in trouble. So I play knight d2. We get rook a8, I go king b2, knight b5, and now I play the move knight c4. Alireza trades, goes knight c3, I trade, and here I play the move king b3. Now on first glance, after the move rook to a2, this looks extremely scary with the rook on the second rank hitting all the pawns, but as I realized during the game, when I play rook to f1 here, the rook simply has no squares on the second rank, so the rook and the knight look very pretty, but they're not actually particularly active. So we get g5. Here I play h3. Apparently e5 is a much stronger move. I didn't want to play this move simply because I was worried about the knight jumping back to d5 and f4 later on, but had I played e5, apparently this is a very big advantage. Instead, I go h3, g3, g4, takes, and now I play the move knight b2. Now, this move is fine, but again, the computer is screaming for this move e5, and I think the reason is quite simple. If black plays moves like king to e7, I can go bishop to f5, intending to win this pawn on g4, and this should be pretty straightforward. But I go knight b2, bishop e5, I play rook h1, bishop f6, rook c1, and now I go rook h1, and here I blunder with the move knight c4. Now, I will say that at this point, we've been playing this match for, I think, close to 4 hours, if you include the breaks, and I'm simply I just get sloppy for one move. I play knight c4, I hang this pawn, and now I'm down a pawn, and I'm in a difficult situation. Luckily, when I play the move rook to f1, guarding the pawn on f2 here, even though I'm down a pawn with this knight jumping potentially to some nice squares, combined with the opposite color bishops here, there are still very good chances for me to draw the game. So we get knight c3 back, I play knight d6, rook e7, and now I play the move rook to a1. Here, Alireza plays the move rook to e6 here, with the rook coming in, combined with this great knight that's supported by the pawn and all these various jumping forks. This looks like a very tough spot to play for black. So we get rook e6. I check. Here I play check. And now I play the move bishop to f5. Now, what's really tragic about this situation is that had I played the move rook to b8 here, going after this pawn on b7, the game is over immediately. I still keep this bishop f5 idea in my back pocket, but I have the active rook. Instead, I go bishop f5, and now Alireza plays d3, and suddenly the position is spiraling out of control because it goes from a spot where I think I just win the rook to now the bishop supporting the knight, the pawn pushing through, and all of a sudden, it's very, very tough because this is a huge shock to the system because you go from where you think you're winning to now suddenly it's a game again. So I play rook to f8. We get d2, I take, and here Alireza plays king to d8. Bishop to e7 would have been the best move here. And now after I take the pawn and black queens, takes, and taking on b7, for example, I guess rook to e2 and black's better, but probably the game should end up in a draw because I have all these pawns in return for the bishop. But instead, Alireza plays king d8. And now I take the pawn, and when he plays bishop to e7 here, I'm able to play king c2, stopping the pawn from going up the board. Alireza takes the knight, and here I take the bishop. Of course, had I played king c3, this is also winning, but I take the bishop, he takes, I take, and now we've reached an endgame where I have 2 extra pawns, and this is simply an endgame that I should win 100% of the time. So we get rook c1. And now I play the move king to d4, which I think is a terrible decision from a practical standpoint. I think that king to d2 would have been a very, very good choice because after rook b1, rook f1, and rook f7 supporting all the pawns here, this is simply an endgame that I win with no risk. But instead I go king d4. Alireza checks, and here I play king to e3. This is also a crazy decision. I should simply bring the king towards the pawn on c5, but I go here, he plays rook b1, and now I play the move g4. Alireza plays c5, I play b5, and here he checks me on b3. I go king e4, he checks, and now I play the move king to f5. Now, it's very important to note here that I have these extra pawns on the king side rolling, but as we're about to see, Alireza finds a very nasty trick. He plays c4, and here I play this move g5. Now, if I want to look at this match and be really sad about any moment, this is probably the moment that I have to be unhappy with, because here in this game, if I play b6 and rook to c7, stopping this pawn from queening, then I will win the game. On top of this, I do think that not bringing the king back earlier, that's also something that's inexplicable, and that's just a failure of nerves or just the instinct at a critical moment. But let's keep going. So we get c4. Now here in this position, I calculate that I'm pushing the pawn through and winning the game. Now, one thing that happened here that I want to point out, and this is something that I think happens with a lot of chess players as they get older, is you tend to become much more emotional about the situations in certain games. I'll give a very clear example. In the recent World Rapid and Blitz Championship, there was a game that was played between Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, I believe, and Jan Nepomniachtchi, the former World Championship challenger. And Nepo, at critical moments when he either was winning or made mistakes, there were certain gestures and reactions he had, which he never used to have when he was younger. Obviously, with Magnus, it's pretty similar. And I think as you get older, these sorts of things happen. Now, The reason I bring this up is when I played the move g5 here, in my mind, I thought that I'm queening the pawn with check and the game is over. And I think I gave a little bit of fist bump or something thinking that it was over. Now, the reason that I should have realized to not do this is twofold. There was a moment in the Esports World Cup last August where I had a winning position against Wei Yi from China, and I don't think I celebrated necessarily, but I started to get really optimistic, thinking the game was over. I made a blunder, and it was a small miracle that I was able to force tiebreaks in that match, because if I had lost this game, which I was winning, and I should have lost probably, I would have been eliminated long before playing Magnus in the semis. But again, you can't necessarily control your emotions. It's been a 4-hour plus match at this point, and I thought it's over. So it comes as a very rude surprise when suddenly Alireza plays the move rook to f4, sacking the rook, and now I simply lose my mind completely. Now the problem here is that after takes and c2, suddenly I have no way to stop black's pawn from queening here. Probably if I go g7, black queens, I can go king to f5, and the game should be a draw after queen b1 because the queen can just check the king forever. But I end up not taking the rook. I just panic here. It's like there's no way this can be a draw because my pawn is quicker than his pawn. So I end up playing the move king to e5, and this is just a terrible decision here. If I don't take the rook, probably, I guess king g5 I thought was maybe a move with g7, but apparently, after queen and queen, now suddenly black is rook to f8, creating a fossil and winning the game, so you can't go to g5, so it's all completely crazy, and it's a huge upset to the system when you go from thinking you're winning to suddenly having to start over. So I go king to e5. Now Alireza pushes the pawn, and now it's basically panic mode. It's like, what has happened here? I've completely messed this up. So I go check, we get king c7, and now I play the move g7. Alireza goes rook g4, and now I end up in the situation where I've gone from completely winning to where I'm losing. So I play rook g7. Now I go rook f7, Alireza checks, I go here, check, and somehow I get very lucky because rather miraculously, we reach this endgame where shockingly, this is probably a draw. Now, apparently it's not a draw and black has a way to win here, but at this point, Alireza really fails to do anything. He starts checking me all over the board. I keep waiting, and here at this moment, suddenly after surviving for all these moves, he brings his king around. Let's keep going. He goes here. Now I bring the king back. I go here. And suddenly in this moment, I play this horrible move f6. Now, had I played the move king to g7, the game almost certainly would have ended in a draw here because we're approaching 50 moves, but more importantly, black can never dislodge the king and the rook. The rook guards the pawn. If black ever tries to bring the king back, I check and go over. And basically, I just have the situation where if the queen moves, I move the king. If black moves the queen, I move the rook. And then, so I have rook f7, rook f8, king g7, g8. And this position would be a draw. But somehow I just lose my mind and I play f6, and when I played this move, I simply missed the move king g6 here. I thought that in this position, I was going to get the king to g7, and now the game would probably be a draw. So for a second time in this game, my instinct simply fails me, or I lose control of the nerves. I play f6, and now after Alireza goes king g6, I can no longer save this pawn, and now I'm going to lose the game. So I play a few more moves. I think I play king e8 here. He takes a pawn, and then I just decide to resign the game. Because when I move the rook to, say, d7, black can go king to e6 here. And with the multiple queen checks, I'm going to lose this game. So this is really a big tragedy in terms of looking at the overall match. Because this is a game that I should win 99% of the time. But I make the wrong decision with very limited time once again. So I end up losing this game, and now I'm down 1-0 in this final set of 4. The second game would end in a draw, and in the third game with the white pieces, I would have some small chances perhaps, but ultimately the game was trending towards a draw. But at the last moment, I made a big blunder trying to go for more, and I ended up losing the third game of this 4-game tiebreaker. And with that, that means that I end up losing the match by a score of, I believe, 15 to 13.5. So what are my overall views of this match? Now, it's very tricky to judge because there were many moments in this match where I probably should have won, but there were also many moments where I also should have lost this match. And I think when I look at the match in general, unlike when I played Alireza last year in the Speed Chess Championship, where I was very unhappy with my performance, I made many big mistakes. When I look at this match, I'm generally pretty happy because I maintained my level. Yes, you could say I lost my nerve at critical moments, and I should have won this in the bullet portion specifically, but I would say that I really proved that I can still play in bullet. For me, I think the thing that I'm going to look back on this match and be unhappy about is not the actual result, but the fact that Simply the fact that I had this one moment where I played 4 really bad games in a row in the 3+1 portion, and even though that didn't ultimately decide the match, I feel that lack of focus or concentration, whatever you want to call it, that dip in my quality for those 4 games was really, really unfortunate, and I think in many ways that set the tone for what eventually would transpire. Again, I could have won later on, but that's probably the thing that I'm most unhappy with when I look at this match. On the other hand, it obviously was a great match for everybody to watch. It was very, very tense throughout. It was very back and forth. It could have gone either way. Ultimately, it didn't work out for me, but I'm very proud with how I played in this match. There were a couple moments, especially after 4 losses in a row, when it easily could have gone off the rails. I could have lost some more games than 3-1 and lost. Bullet could have gone much worse. And the last thing I'll leave you with that I found really kind of poetic in a sense, or maybe poetic's the wrong word, is that yesterday, during the media day, I actually was talking to Magnus a little bit, and Magnus and I had a conversation specifically about Bullet. And what we were discussing is whether either Magnus or myself would have a chance to beat Alireza in straight up Bullet if the match was longer than, say, 30 minutes. If it was like a 1.5 hour or 2 hour match, like a long, proper Bullet match, would either of us have a chance? And both of us felt that we would both lose very badly if it were a long match. And so for me, when I look at this, I would say that, I have to tip my cap to Alireza. He really hung in some critical moments where I thought the games were over. I had the whole match locked up, and ultimately I did not. But I also feel that at the end of the day, I kind of ended up running out of gas as well towards the end. And so after all these ups and downs, it was a great match. It wasn't meant to be, but I'm definitely not that unhappy. I know people probably think that I'm like heartbroken or really disappointed. I felt that I played very well. One of the things I'm very happy with is that I felt I was very good under time pressure, playing with seconds on the clock. If I can maintain that composure, especially in the candidates where there are going to be games where players get below 5 minutes and you have to make moves, you have to be on the ball with a 30-second increment. I do like my chances if I can maintain it. So that's one of the very big positives. Also, I think the fans, they got a great match. I didn't have a chance to really sign as many autographs as I would have liked to, but that's how it goes. At any rate, you guys, it's after midnight here in London. I don't even know if I'll be able to order any food. But I hope you guys enjoyed this recap. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, make sure that you smash that subscribe button below. And tomorrow we'll be back after I play Denis Lazovic in the consolation match for 3rd and 4th place. So hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm obviously very tired, and I'll see you guys all tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye.